Tanks. This Manaforge Omega guide is specifically for you. We are covering every boss across LFR, normal, and heroic difficulties, but only the mechanics that you need to be aware of. So let's jump into it. The Plexus Sentinel. This is a single phase fight with a brief intermission when the boss reaches 100 energy. It also remains the same for you across all difficulties. In phase 1, you're going to want to keep the boss where he is. Obliteration Arcano Cannon is the tank buster, and it's a 6-second cast, dealing arcane damage. Once targeted, you need to run to the far left or the far right side of the room. Once this attack goes off, it leaves behind a large ground effect on the ground. It also deals a burst of raid damage, and this damage decreases the further away you are from the boss. You'll swap after each use. The intermission triggers at 100 energy. The boss will push everyone back to the room entrance and teleport to the next chamber. You need to chase after the boss, avoiding all of the beams and bubbles. There is also a large wall of death that is purging the room. You will need to use your extra action button in order to pass through this wall safely, so activate it once you're close. This also allows you to pass through any bubbles and beams, taking reduced damage. Reach the boss, wait for the DPS to break his shield, and phase 1 repeats. Loomithar. This is a 2-phase fight, and phase 2 starts when the boss reaches 50% HP. In phase 1, the boss doesn't move, and you'll want to position off-center of the boss due to the tank buster, Piercing Strand. This is a line attack that deals arcane damage and tracks you, so it will hit any other player that is caught in its path. You're going to swap after each use. The boss will occasionally create a web ring around the room that slowly shrinks inward. The DPS will burn one of these links down to allow you to safely pass through it. On Heroic, these links will be shielded, and you will need to aim Piercing Strand at one of these links. Once it's hit, the shield is broken, and the DPS can burn it down to create a safe opening in the ring. Phase 2 triggers at 50% HP. The boss breaks free from the center and can now move around the room. You want to kite the boss around the room as he will continuously create pools on the ground that slowly expand. The boss has a frontal cone attack called Writhing Wave. It will deal nature damage and apply a 25-second dot. This attack tracks the active tank, and it needs to be soaked by the raid to split up the damage. No swapping is necessary for this unless you're on Heroic. On Heroic, Writhing Wave will stack, so the raid should split into 2 groups for soaking, and you'll be swapping after each soak. Nazindri. This is a single-phase fight where positioning is very important. There are multiple chambers around the room, and the raid will be breaking these chambers with one of the boss's abilities. These chambers contain adds. The adds aren't fully formed until their bar fills, which is around 2 minutes. For the outer chambers, you'll want to position the boss near them, but not directly against them. For the center 4 chambers, you can place the boss right in the center of all 4. Once chambers are broken, you should move the boss near the adds that are inside for cleave damage. These adds haven't been formed yet, so they don't do anything. After 2 minutes, the adds will fully form and they break free from any remaining chambers. Now you need to quickly pick these up and group them together so they can be burned down. None of the adds are really worth mentioning, just interrupt any mages if you can. This fight remains the same across all difficulties, with the only real difference being how many containers are active. Mystic Lash is the tank buster. This is a 5-second channeled ability that deals arcane damage and applies a stacking debuff, so taunt after each channel. The only other note here is the boss will use Arcane Expulsion. Just make sure you're not standing close to the edge, as this is a knockback and it can knock you off the platform. The Forgeweaver. This is a 2-phase fight with an intermission when the boss reaches 100 energy. Phase 1 is the only part of this fight that changes with difficulty. You want to tank the boss near the center of the room. Arcane Obliteration is a soak mechanic that tracks the active tank, so make sure you stand still so everyone can easily help soak. You're going to want to swap after each cast of this. This is also where the differences are. On LFR, it's just a soak. On normal, an ad spawns from this soak called an Arcane Echo. It basically mimics the boss's attacks, so whoever soaks should just pick this ad up and tank it near the boss for cleave damage. On Heroic, however, there are a couple more changes with this. First, the soak mechanic applies a debuff, so the raid needs to be split in half. Second, once the ad is spawned, if the ad and the boss are within 20 yards of each other, their damage is buffed and they take less damage. So the best way to handle this is to stand still for the soak. Once it goes off, the other tank should taunt the boss and pull him away from the ad so that the rest of the raid can quickly burn it down. The boss does apply an overwhelming power dot to the tank. This deals damage over 45 seconds and it stacks. If you're taunting after each soak, you shouldn't have to really worry about this. The intermission will trigger when the boss reaches 100 energy. The raid shifts focus to the collectors, and you'll shift your focus to the spawning adds. Keep the adds close to the collectors for cleave damage. Keep an eye on your partner, as these adds have a damage ramp, so the longer they focus the same target, the more damage they do. If you notice the damage is hitting hard, you'll want to taunt it away. Also, be aware that the collector's energy bar. If one of them reaches 100 energy, it shoots a beam towards the center that deals big raid damage. You can move your ad in front of this beam and it will negate this raid damage, so keep that in mind if your group isn't burning them down fast enough. Phase 2 triggers at around 25% HP or shortly after the second intermission. You want to tank the boss near the entrance of the room, as the black hole in the back of the room will pull everyone towards it, and this pull gets stronger as the phase continues. The boss still applies the overwhelming power dot, so just swap after 2 stacks. The Soulhunters. This is a council-style fight with 3 bosses. Adaris cannot be tanked, so you're going to want to keep Alyssa and Villarin close to him for cleave. All 3 bosses need to be killed at roughly the same time as they start dealing increased raid damage when one of them is defeated. The fight remains the same for you across all difficulties. Fracture and I-Beam are the 2 tank busters. I-Beam just deals continuous damage as it's channeled, and it knocks you backwards. This does track you, so make sure you aren't turning it into the raid. Fracture is going to hit you and spawn a green soul fragment. This fragment needs to quickly be picked up by another player. While it's active, you receive less healing. If another DPS doesn't pick it up, then make sure you're grabbing it to help out your partner. There's only one note here. On LFR normal, there is only 1 fragment, but on heroic, there are 2 fragments to pick up. You'll swap after each of these attacks. The intermissions are all about survival, and they trigger at 100 energy. Adaris will go to the center and start calling orbs towards him. Just intercept these. Velarin will mark a bunch of players with lines. These alternate between players constantly, so just keep dancing around to avoid them. Alyssa will mark a circle in the ground where she jumps to. Once she jumps, she faces the center of the room and does a large frontal cone. Just use whatever movement abilities you can and quickly move to the far back side of her circle. Fractillus. This is a simple, single-phase fight that remains the exact same for you across all difficulties. There are 6 crystals, and each crystal represents a lane. The raid will be placing and destroying walls in these lanes, but one of these lanes should be marked as a safe lane for the raid to stand in. There are multiple ways to handle this, so it really depends on your group. I'll cover 2 ways, and you can decide amongst yourselves. Shockwave Slam is the tank buster. This is going to deal physical damage, knock you backwards, apply a 500% damage debuff, and create a wall. So obviously, you're going to be swapping after each use. For LFR and normal, I'd suggest for 1 tank to be placed in the first lane, and the second tank to be placed in the 6th lane. For heroic difficulty, I'd suggest that the main tank stands next to the safe lane, and the off tank stands in the safe lane. After each Shockwave Slam, tanks should rotate out. The main reasoning behind this is for damage control and easier wall management. Just for clarification purposes, if your lane reaches 5 walls, you need to switch to a different lane. 6 walls means a wipe. Your raid members should be paying attention and breaking those walls if they stack up, but I just want you to be aware to help compensate for their mistakes. The Nexus King. This is a 3-phase fight with 2 intermissions. The raid should be split into 2 groups prior to pulling. Phase 1, you're going to keep the boss in the center of the room. The boss starts by channeling an ability that places 3 stacks of a debuff called Oathbound on each player. The only way to remove this is by soaking his tank-related Conquer ability. His Tank Buster is a sequence of 4 attacks that rotate between 2 different abilities: Conquer and Vanquish. Conquer is a soak ability that tracks you, and Vanquish is a frontal cone attack that also tracks you. Both of these attacks also apply a stacking damage increase debuff. On LFR normal, this sequence always follows the same order. First is Conquer, followed by a Vanquish, followed by another Vanquish, and finally ending with the Conquer. So tanks are going to want to swap after the first Vanquish. On Heroic, however, this attack cadence is somewhat more random. Tanks will want to swap after each attack. So no matter what is used, you'll immediately swap. Keep in mind that you need to taunt as soon as the ability is triggered, so once he starts with Conquer or Vanquish, go ahead and hit the taunt to ensure that your taunt will be back off the cooldown. Phase 2. The boss will summon his Drake and mount it. The tank-related mechanic here is 2 parts. First, the boss uses Cosmic Maw, which deals physical damage and applies a debuff, increasing the damage of his next ability, Dimension Breath, by 100% for 10 seconds. Tanks will want to swap after this Cosmic Maw attack as he immediately follows up with the Breath. Dimension Breath tracks you, so make sure you stand still while it's going off and pop a defensive. On Heroic, popping a defensive is even more important, as whatever damage you suffer from the Breath attack is dealt to the raid in a burst of damage. The first intermission requires the raid to split in half and proceed to either the left or right side of the platform. Use your extra action button to phase over to your assigned platform where you'll be dealing with ads. Keep them grouped up here and interrupt whatever you can. It just mainly comes down to avoiding all the attacks. Once all ads are defeated, you'll use the gateway to phase back over to the boss. The second intermission, the boss will jump off of his Drake and start consuming it. The raid will pop Bloodlust here and try to burn the Drake down. All you can do is deal some damage and avoid all the claw marks. Phase 3 starts after the channel. The tank-related mechanic for this phase is in 2 parts. Galactic Smash will target the active tank plus other raid members. You should immediately run to the edge of the arena, spread out from everyone else. The boss and his holograms will jump to each player and create a black hole that will try to suck everyone inside. If done correctly, the hole should be spread evenly so that each pool negates the other. Everybody that was not targeted should remain in the center of the room, and the off-tank should also taunt before this goes off to keep the boss from running to the edge of the platform. Each black hole will then create a large dark star with spikes in its place. These stars will send out rings of spikes from its center, so pay attention and move the boss accordingly when they reach you. After these rings, the boss will use Starkiller Swing, and this targets the current tank plus other players with the line. Your line is red, and you want to aim this towards one of the stars so that it is destroyed. Taunt swap after each of these attacks as they apply a Star Shatter debuff that increases damage taken from the next ability for 40 seconds. On LFR and normal, these stars remain stationary, and the only other note is that you want to position the boss between all of these stars to make destroying them easier. On Heroic, however, these stars will rotate around the platform, so just be aware of this and move the boss accordingly. Dimensius. This is a 3-phase fight with a flying intermission. In Phase 1, the boss's platform is shaped as a half circle, and the raid will be split in half, one for the left side and one for the right side. As soon as someone uses the gateway, the encounter starts, so make sure you use a pull timer so everyone is phasing at the same time. The boss's melee attacks will knock any close-by players up into the air, so decide amongst yourselves who is grabbing the boss first. As soon as you land on the platform, immediately run to the boss and grab a hold of him. Relocate yourself to the middle of the platform until the first Devour. At 100 energy, the boss uses his Devour ability, which kills anyone not inside of a safe zone after 5 seconds. These safe zones will be placed in the same pattern each pull, and it is the DPS's responsibility to handle this. There are 3 Devours in Phase 1 before it's a wipe. The first Devour, the safe zone should be in the center of the platform. The second Devour safe zone will be on the left and right side of the platform, and the third Devour safe zone will be back in the center. So just move to your appropriate sides. The boss's tank buster is called Massive Smash. This places a large ring around you. Once it hits, it will knock everyone backwards from the impact location and apply a damage increase debuff, so you're going to want to swap after each use. Both tanks should be positioned near the center of the platform, with the active tank nudging to the center for the Massive Smash. Nothing for you changes on Heroic difficulty. Once the boss reaches 0 HP, the flying intermission will start. Just wait for the RP to finish and mount up. There's a lot of stuff going on here, but just fly through the rings and you'll be fine. You'll fly towards a platform, and once you land, Phase 2 begins against a mini-boss. Positioning for Phase 2 is crucial as the platform will be divided by adds that are summoned. You'll want to tank the first mini-boss close to where he starts off, but move him just a little south. The mini-boss will summon a cross of adds. These adds don't move, but 2 of them need to be killed. One along the vertical line and one along the horizontal line. Start with the vertical add first, so move the mini-boss close to them for cleave and keep your eye on Dimensius. Dimensius will raise back one of his arms, and this is your cue to move. Whichever arm he raises back, you need to move to the opposite side of the platform. So left arm going back means move to the far right, and the right arm going back means move to the far left. He throws a chunk of the world at the platform, and this kills anybody hit. After that smashes into the platform, move the mini-boss to the far north side of the platform, closest to Dimensius, as he will do a strong pushback. This is where the raid should have killed one of the horizontal adds, so that if you get pushed too far back, you have a clear lane to move through. After the boss is defeated, you'll do another flying intermission to the next platform to face a second boss and handle it the same way. The mini-bosses do have their own ability. The first mini-boss will do a line attack that is targeted towards whatever your location was. This doesn't track you, so just keep this in mind and try to angle it away from the raid. The second mini-boss creates a small circle around him that everyone needs to move out of before it detonates. For the second boss, keep that in mind as your DPS is trying to kill one of the adds. The mini-bosses do apply a stacking debuff to you, and you want to swap before 10 stacks. It only lasts for 10 seconds, but if this debuff reaches 15, then it automatically kills you. LFR and normal are identical here, but on Heroic there are a couple changes. First, the mini-boss's attacks leave behind a ground effect, so positioning here is going to change for you. You're going to want to tank these guys away from the Void Warden adds, keep them closest to Dimensius, and make sure you are facing the first guy towards Dimensius so that his beam shoots off the platform. This ground effect deals damage and slows you, so you don't want this in your pathways. For the second mini-boss, you're going to want to keep him also away from the ad just because of his circle attack dropping it onto the ground. The second change is that there is a new ad that spawns called the Soulbinder, but this doesn't truly affect you as they can't be tanked. They just spam cast an ability that's interruptible, so if you aren't tanking the mini-boss, just throw an interrupt out there to help out. Once both mini-bosses are defeated, Phase 3 begins. Phase 3 is similar to Phase 1 for us. The boss's melee attacks still do a knock-up to anyone close by, so make sure you aren't stacked on top of anyone. The boss will use Devour, but this time you're going to be using the rotating stars as a safe zone, so stand under these to survive. Keep in mind that the stars will continue rotating, so don't just stand still. Also be aware that the boss turns these stars into black holes, so pay attention and don't step into one of those or you'll die. When one of those stars is turning into a black hole, it has a big swirly effect around it, so watch out for this and move away if you're too close. The boss's tank buster is Cosmic Collapse. This creates a small ring around you, so again make sure you're positioned away from others and taunt swap after each use. There is one more mechanic to be aware of called Darkened Sky. This calls down 3 meteors marked on the ground. These impact in a staggered cadence, and they send out a ring from the impact zone. These rings apply a stacking 3-second debuff, so you want to wait 3 seconds before passing through each ring. On Heroic, there is only one change, and that is the Cosmic Collapse Tank Buster. This will now pull the entire raid towards you for 20 yards. Make sure that you are in direct sight of your raid so that they can safely be pulled. If the raid is pulled through the boss or through a black hole, then they die. And that's it. Shout out to these channel members. If this video helped, press the thumbs up. Subscribe if you enjoy WoW content. I have plenty of guides, tips and tricks, and more. Extra support can be given by becoming a channel member. It's 99 cents a month and gives you early ad-free access to all my videos. Also check out my Prefessional tanking merch. I'll see you in the next one.